and welcome. Thank you for joining me here again tonight. Tonight we're talking about common mistakes that we make in relationships. And guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I have struggled with this topic or subject area tonight. I've struggled with it. And I know that I am probably the queen of mistakes. I made so many of them, and I still make them. But I just want to take time to share with you some of the common ones that come to mind. So if you're joining me here tonight, go ahead and like and share this video so that others on your timeline can enjoy tonight's discussion as well. Number one, committing too soon. And we know if we can think back in some of our younger years, our earlier relationships, for those of us that has tried and failed our hands at relationships, when we commit too soon, that is one of the biggest mistakes, because when we commit too soon, we don't have a firm foundation. The relationship has nothing to stand on at that point. So it's not to say that we can't press through and the relationship work out, but we just make it so much harder on ourselves when we commit to something too soon without even counting up the cost of what we're in for. And a lot of times I find that we commit too soon because maybe out of fear of being alone. Maybe it's, the attraction that we see, something that draws us. Maybe we have so many things in common. But yet when we commit too soon, regardless of however much we have in common, later we soon find that we have that much more not in common. And so when we commit and jump into the relationships too soon, then it causes hardships later down the line. And so that would be a mistake that I would say that some of us make. We've just committed too soon in the relationship. Thank you for joining me. I saw some of you logging on there. Look like we are having a little technical difficulty. Maybe if you would check and see if the sound and everything is okay. I saw some technical difficulties coming here. Go ahead and like and share this video. And thank you for sacrificing your time to be here with us tonight. We're talking about common mistakes that we make in relationships. Number two, we go into a relationship already looking for a way out. And I know that seems foolish, but it is so true. And I've shared with you in my book, I've shared with you in earlier conversations on earlier lives, how I was going from one place to the next, one relationship to the next, and I was going in already looking for a way out. So it seemed, you would think that I would ask myself, why even waste my time even going into a relationship, even giving it a chance? Well, the reason why we do this is because of our own insecurities, our own self-insecurities. We're going into the relationships and we're already looking for a way out. So not really wanting to commit, not even at that point to where emotionally we're ready to commit. Because when we go into something already looking for a way out, all that is a clue that we're dragging our old hurts, our old baggage along into a new place. we drag it along with us. We go in looking for a way out because experience teaches us that, or we automatically assume that they're not going to be faithful. And we're just waiting on when they're going to hurt us, or when is the bad behavior going to show up. We're already going into a new situation, dragging along our old experiences, looking for a way out. And these are mistakes that we make, because when we do this, we're not giving the relationship a fair chance. And maybe we do this to drag the relationship along to get what we want. Maybe what we want is really not a committed relationship. Maybe we're looking to gain something material from it, or monetary from it. And so we find ourselves staying long enough, or getting in a situation long enough until we get what we want from it, and we look for the first excuse to exit out. We're talking tonight about common mistakes we make in relationships. I thank you guys for joining me tonight. If you have a comment, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. Also, like and share this video so others on your timeline can enjoy tonight's video with us as well. I'm so grateful to be here with you. Like I said, I struggled with this here topic. I struggled with it, and I guess it's because it hits home. It hits home. I've made many mistakes in relationships, and I feel as though I'm still making those mistakes. I just hope that I am learning, and I learn by getting to know myself just a little bit better, guys. The better I am personally and emotionally, the better that I'm going to be in my relationships. So just thank you guys for joining me. Please continue to like and share. We're up to number 3. Failure to add up the costs. Now, we know that anything worth having is going to cost us something. And oftentimes we go into a relationship and it may start off good, but maybe we just really hadn't sit down to add up the costs. Because we know that just because something starts out a particular way does not necessarily mean it's always going to be that way. Because if you remember me telling you before, life is going to happen. Regardless of what we have going on, how good things seem to be, life happens. And it's going to continue to happen. And if we hadn't counted up the cost, oftentimes life can catch us on a blind side. And it can affect our relationships, because sometimes in relationships, things happen that maybe there's death, or maybe there's imprisonment, or maybe there's a job that causes them to have to go away, and we're separated. Have we counted up the cost going in? What if these things happen? What about sickness? There's so much, especially we know, like in our world today. Have you sat to think over the past week, what if? Have we counted up the cost? Have we gone back into our documents to make sure that things are set in place, that if something happens to happen, are we prepared? Have we counted up the cost and how that is going to affect our relationships and our family dynamics? Have we really considered those things? So these are mistakes that we constantly make, because day after day after day, life is going to happen all around us. If something happens to my husband today, have I counted up the cost, what it's going to take for us to make it for the next 300 days of the year. I mean, this is reality. So we enter relationships. We haven't counted up the cost of maybe our kids getting sick. What happens if we have to send one of them away? What happens if they get in trouble? There's so many things to consider. And God forbid if we have a blended family like mine. I'm committed, and then they're not. When a situation arises that does not concern them. So there's so many things, and there's so many areas in this that if we don't count up the costs, it could do damage to our relationships. And these are mistakes that we make. All it takes is just communicating and learning and setting things in place so that if it happens, because I'm not saying one thing or another is going to happen, but you can rest assured that something's going to come up and it's going to cost us something. So we have to make preparation. Thank you for joining me. I've seen some others logging in and joining us. Go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment section. If you have a comment, go ahead and like and share this video as well. We're talking about common mistakes that we make in relationships. And we're on number 4. Number 4, trying to change the other person. And I see this more in our relationships with our children, more so than I have noticed in, say, my marriage. Because when our children are young, we do the best we can to instill all the knowledge and just establish a healthy, loving relationship with them. But somewhere around those late teens and those early 20s, they discover they have a mind and a brain of their own. And if we're not careful, sometimes we can find ourselves in a situation to where we're trying to manipulate them to change and conform to who we desire for them to be, rather than who they are growing and developing to be for themselves. How about we just love them? How about we just support them and not try to change them? And there are instances to where we get in a relationship with the person knowing that they are a drunk, or knowing that they are addicted, or knowing that they have hang-ups, and knowing that they have baggage. And we enter that relationship because we think we're going to change them. Guess what? Nobody changed us, did they? We had our mind, and however we thought, either you dealt with the person we can't control in any instance is ourselves. And a lot of times we don't do a good job of that because we know too much that we won't even put ourselves in a situation to develop and grow in areas to where we know that we need help. So it's always so much easier to look at the faults or the mistakes or the downfalls of the other person. And when we find ourselves in a situation to where we're trying to change somebody else, we put a strain on our relationships. So I think that if I tried to change my husband instead of just accepting him for who he is, it's a problem. I think if my husband tried to change me instead of just accept me for who I am, it's a problem. It's even a bigger problem at that point. Because you went into a relationship one way, knowing that these were my hang-ups, and now all of a sudden you want to change. You want to change me. And it just doesn't work that way. If you understand what I'm saying, go ahead and hit that like button. And don't forget to like and share the video as well. I do appreciate you sacrificing and being here with me tonight. If you have a comment, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section. I'm talking tonight about common mistakes that we make in relationships. Number 5, telling too much or too little. And I think this can go any direction. But I think one of the greatest things is that we tell too much. Some of us ladies tell our significant others, our partners, our spouse, our children, just entirely too much. We don't use wisdom. And I find that when we tell too much, it does more harm than good when it comes to our relationships. Well, what do I mean when I say tell too much? I don't think it necessary that when I take a trip to the grocery store or take a trip out on business, that it's necessary for me to come and tell my spouse everyone who stops and says hello, or to give him every detail of people that I'm having a conversation with. What is that going to do to my husband? What does that do to his emotions? What kind of play does that play on his ego? And some of us, we make that mistake time and time again. We just tell too much. Too much of things that don't really mount to a hill of beans, but we tell it as to draw a reaction. Maybe because they've made us feel a certain way, so now we're going to go tell it to draw jealousy or envy or something out of them. And it's not right. And this is a mistake that we make within our relationships. Sometimes we just talk too much. And whatever our intent is when we tell it, we don't necessarily know how the information is going to be perceived when they receive it. So we make this mistake, and then we wonder why now they want to know every little detail when we move. They want to know, who you're talking to when your phone rings, or where you're going, and why you're not taking the kids with you. Because now you've created something that would not have ordinarily, necessarily even been there. You created that. And to some of us, it's a game. We want that. We think that shows love. That does not show love, especially when you're feeding a facade, playing on other people's intelligence and their imaginations, their insecurities. You play on that, and then you create something that you're not ready for. So these are mistakes that we make in relationships. Number 6. Lord, this goes back to our first lesson when we talked about finances. The consumption of unnecessary debts. When you add finances in on top of problems and issues that you already have, you have created a monster. Did you know that finances was one of the leading causes of divorces and separations today? Just unnecessary stuff. I'm spending and I'm hiding. He's spending, he hiding. The kids spending, they hiding. And there's no communication. We're just building debt on top of debt on top of debt. So we make this mistake. We make this mistake. Finances is a big issue in our families today. If you're already in financial debt, and now here comes the crisis, and then you don't have the money to maintain during the crisis, that is a problem. But now with COVID-19 or Corona or whatever you want to call it, now with all that in the mix, who gonna go anywhere? Where you going? To the next room? You going to the next room because there ain't nowhere else to go. But we have all this debt, so we have this elephant in the room, and nobody wants to talk about it. And not talking about it is not going to make it go away. It's not going to make it go away. All it is just add fuel to the fire. It's easier to say we'll walk out on something. It takes commitment to stay here and work it out. How can we work it out? Through communicating. We have to communicate. So we consume debt, unnecessary debt, on top of debt, on top of debt. That's a mistake that we make in our relationship, and it wreaks havoc on our relationships. Number 7, pretending. And I was the master of this. This is me. I was the one that always wore the mask. I wore the mask. Everything's okay. It's okay until it's not. But because I had such a history of not accepting me, not appreciating who I am, not feeling that I'm good enough, I'd put on a mask and pretend it's okay until it's not. And at that time, especially when you're in unhealthy relationships, you're the one that finds yourself in the worst predicament. But because as long as you're the one pretending and going along with whatever they say in the relationship, what happens when you don't want to pretend anymore or you're ready to take the mask off? Then it creates a whole nother issue. Well, it used to be okay with you. Well, I lied. Well, it used to not bother you. Well, it does now. And so it begins to wreak havoc on your relationships. So these are mistakes we make. We pretend going in wearing the mask because we're trying to fit and conform to what our mate wants of us, and we're not really being honest. So that affects the foundation of the relationship. Because when you're tired of pretending and you don't want to pretend anymore, they may have been okay with the way things were. And they may be a little reluctant to the change. Or being a little reluctant to the point to now they have to pay the bills. and you've been doing it all alone because you pretended that you had it all under control. Whatever the situation is. I don't know, but pretending. We're talking tonight about we're talking tonight about common mistakes that we make in relationships. We're up to number 8. We neglect the needs of our partners. And some of us, we even neglect the needs of our children and everything else around us. We do that out of selfishness. That's just all it is to it. When we're selfish, we neglect to consider the needs of anybody else. It's all about us. Me, me, me. And if it ain't me, I'm going to make sure it's me. I'm never going to consider you. I can honestly say that I'm here. I'm one of those that I find myself sometimes being so selfish in my relationship that I neglect the needs of my spouse or the needs of my children just to fulfill my own selfish intent or desires. I am neglectful. A lot of times that I'm so consumed by what my needs are, and maybe even consumed by the needs of my children, that when my spouse asks me or give me one simple request, then now it's an issue. But yet he has given, and I neglect one little thing that he asked, one request. I neglect that out of selfishness. And these are mistakes that I am well aware that I am making. And I have to be intentional on making the corrections so that he's not left out and the last one to be considered in a situation. I feel like if he put my needs on the back burner, then that would cause me to feel a certain kind of way. Because of my personality and my behaviors, I know it would be an issue and it would be an ongoing problem. But because he's so mild-mannered, it's easier for me to just say, well, I'll get to it or something, and it's not right. So I have to be intentional in making those corrections and not neglecting his needs or his requests that he makes known to me. And it could be just the simplest little thing. How hard is it? You done had 23 hours out of the day to do what you want to do. He asks you for 1 hour and you can't even do that. But yet we'll bend over backwards for the kids. And a lot of times the stuff that they're talking about is foolishness and don't even amount to a hill of beans. Why do we do that? Why are we so selfish? We want our needs met. We want our requests to be taken care of. Because I'm the worst. I want my feet rubbed. I want you to get up and go to the kitchen and make my coffee. I want so many things. And he don't work all day. And I can't get up and get him a bottle of water when he asks. I can't have a hot meal cooked for him when he gets home. Oftentimes, guys, when we have these men They don't want a lot. And if we just do the little things, they'll be content with that. But sometimes we can be so selfish that we neglect the little things that can make the greatest difference in our relationships. I thank you guys for joining me. I see some of you just logged in. Go ahead and like and share this video. Also, if you have a comment, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I love to hear from you. We're talking tonight about common mistakes that we make in relationships. We're up to number 9. Number 9 is that we fail to plan and grow together. We fail to plan and grow together. That's what it's all about. Guys, we have things that we need to do. We have aspirations that we aspire to do, but we don't make plans to grow together. If I don't include my spouse in on a conversation about what my hopes and dreams are, what my plans are for moving forward, and I leave him out of the conversation, that's a mistake we make in our relationship. Because if he is connected to me, anything that I plan and desire to do affects him as well. As likewise our children. It affects the whole family dynamic. My plans for 2020, my resolutions and my plans and my focus for 2020 is doing what I'm doing now. And not only that, but traveling to do the things that you see me doing now. That's been my focus. That's been my goal. Everything to build and grow and learn and put myself in places to where I can learn and grow and develop and expand my influence and my platform. This was my plan. I have to share that plan with my spouse. Failure to share that plan about how I plan to make this happen can create issues. It's already open for potential issues because it's going to require me traveling more. It's going to require me being away from the house more. It's going to require more of my attention to be sitting in front of a computer or to be going to conferences or seminars or somewhere to learn something. It already creates an issue, but it's a bigger issue when you don't include them into the process. How many of you would be okay if your partner would say, well, just hop up on Friday morning. Well, I'm taking a flight out to Chicago and I'll be back on Tuesday night. How many of you are going to be okay with that? No plans. He's growing, going in one direction, and you're stuck here in another. It just does not work that way. So we don't want to make that mistake. So we want to plan and grow together. If we can plan and grow together, we can make a greater impact. The transition will be so much easier when we can do this together. Number 10, reluctance to support the dreams of others. And I've seen this throughout my lifetime, especially those that start their relationships at such a young age. You started out your relationship at 18, 19, 20 years old. Y'all had so much in common. And then when you really get to know yourself,